Remember the days of Tim Tebow or the Nick Saban-led Alabama teams in the early 2010s? Or just the pure dominance of SEC football across the nation?
Zone. Alabama's locker room door opens and they start running out, right? The locker room with their jerseys
tucked underneath.
No, it's up. Their big bellies are out. And they have their fours up. And I remember DJ going by and saying, womp, 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 womp. And I remember vividly remembering the silence behind me. And I kind of glanced back at my teammates, and the eyes on them were so large, I knew at that time, I was like, all right, this is going to be a long day.
Well, that's over now. It's the second straight year in a row the SEC did not appear in the national championship game. SEC also did terribly in the playoffs, with Texas, the SEC's best performer, who just became a member last year. So what has happened? You can go ahead and ask some football analysts like Josh Pate for a reasonable answer, but my theory is that the SEC dominance and its magical power has faded and has transferred over to another sport, basketball. Yes, that's right, we had a number 1 versus number 2 AP top 25 matchup not too long ago. And guess what? They were both not only from the same conference, but the same state. Two SEC teams who hate each other across any sport they play against. We had number 1 Auburn and number 2 Alabama go against each other. This game was electric, but also not only that, as of recording this video, we have a number 1 Auburn team and a number 2 Florida team. Also, out of the top 7 teams ranked, 5 of them are from the SEC. I thought I would never see something like that in basketball in my life. The SEC has truly transformed themselves in this sport. I remember growing up and always wondering why it was always Kentucky being the best team every year, or sometimes it'd be Florida, but it was always 1 or 2 teams constantly who were considered good compared to everyone else in the country. Only teams like Kentucky and Florida had a chance against big names like Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas. Going into the SEC tournament, you always knew it was going to be like Kentucky, Florida, or some random good SEC team that year, and only for that year would be in the SEC championship game. You would bet Kentucky would win it. That's just how it went. And you know, going into the NCAA tournament, you knew Kentucky would be the furthest out of all the SEC teams to make it to like the Final Four or the Elite Eight, while all the other SEC teams lost in the first or second round. And there weren't that many SEC teams either. But this year, it's completely different. The SEC is completely stacked from head to toe. Maybe not toe, but from head to waist. I mean, the bottom's looking a little weak, but the SEC nevertheless is stacked. In football in the SEC this past season was 20-11 against non-conference opponents, while in basketball the SEC is currently 184-24. Now it's obviously rough to compare the two sports and their non-conference win totals, because not only the amount of games that are played are different, but the vast difference in talent levels. In basketball, a team will have multiple opportunities to play D2 schools, while in football, you will be lucky to see your team face one D2 school per year. So let's compare season by season in the same sport to show how the conference is progressing. Last season in basketball, the SEC went 136-46. So there's a noticeable difference there compared to this year. There could be multiple reasons why the SEC is starting to become dominant in basketball and not so much in football. I believe most will say because of NIL. Now that every team has a chance to pay its players, it's leveled out the playing field for these recruits. And knowing how popular the SEC is and how much money football has brought in alone, it possibly made basketball its new sport. I believe this is partly true, but also how much attention has the sport gotten over the past couple of years. I believe in the recent years, the typical sports fan is getting tired of rigged games in the NFL and the NBA and constant reffing incidents in college football.
The shadows of the south end zone, fake by Michigan. Michigan's running for it left side. They run for the marker. Do they get there? It's very close on the far sideline. A 4th down call from Michigan.
Chains out, so who knows? Probably got it. Way things are going, probably got it.
Gamecocks with a stop.
No. The official rule.
He says first down.
Yeah, he did.
Boy, the Gamecock sideline went crazy like they held him.
They did. Sure did. And then all of a sudden he walks up and signaling it for Michigan. So,
boy, that's a tough place to call it right there on the Gamecock sideline.
So much so that the typical sports fan is starting to pay more attention to the authenticity in college basketball. And this is brought in cash money to the NCAA. And we all know money makes the world go around. More money means more talent on the court, especially in the South, where football is king. But clearly basketball has gotten more and more attention over the years, it seems like. The more the fans start to attend the games and buy merch and spread the word about SEC basketball to their coworkers and friends, the more talent will be brought to the league. But what does this mean for football? Honestly, seeing how bad the conference was this year was puzzling. It just felt like most teams were missing a few pieces that could have changed the whole direction of this said team. Sure, Bama didn't have Nick Saban this year, Georgia didn't have a playoff caliber QB, and the list goes on. But even when the SEC had down years in the past, they always had those few top-heavy teams that would win the national championship, or at least make it to the national championship. This past season felt like the whole conference was just flat out terrible. Maybe NIL just helped some other conferences much more than the SEC. Like the Big Ten was insane this past season. The SEC was disappointing, so was the ACC, and the Big 12 was garbage from top to bottom. The attention of college football will go nowhere. The fan base is just way too loyal. So from my opinion, it's just the NIL making it easier for other teams to compete. I don't know if the SEC can dominate like they did before in past years, but clearly something is wrong. Usually there's an SEC team that wins the national championship, or at least loses in the national championship. But for 2 years in a row, not even a participant from the SEC in the title game. That is just insane to me. I plan on making more college basketball content, especially since March is around the corner. So if you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to go like and subscribe. It would mean so much to me. And like always, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Diacono, 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship.